Good evening. Tonight we're going to see how to install VS Code and use it for non-developers. Now, this might be two videos, but we're going to try and do the installation first. So I started with, a while back, a few years ago, creating a page called Maven's Mate and Git for non-developers. But now that Maven's Mate is dead and VS Code is now the official IDE for Salesforce development, I needed to get up and running with it. I put it off for so long and I just didn't understand how to use it. It looked pretty, but I just did not know exactly how to use it. I'm not into package development, ISV development, so I didn't know how I would use it. But I still want to be able to look at my metadata, back up my metadata into my Bitbucket repository, and also, maybe do some simple metadata changes and upload them to Salesforce. The purpose of this talk is to run through, you can have a look at this document, but it's to run through the tools that we're going to install, and we're going to do installing the dev tools. So I haven't finished this part of the post, but these are the tools that we are going to install. We're going to install Git, VS Code, Bitbucket, SourceTree, and PowerShell is already installed. So you can read the details there about what I'm saying about each product, but this is all about installing it. This is really important because I have not found a blog post or a video that shows you how to install these from the bare bones. It's like you have to be a developer to know how to use this stuff, and I really want to make sure that as a non-developer you can use this stuff and you're not intimidated in any way, shape or form to install this stuff and get it up and running. So this is a pretty brand new computer. I only got it replaced a couple of months ago. I have installed everything on it, and then I've just uninstalled them because I want to show you from scratch how you install it, because it's you don't have to have a Mac. You don't have to be told that you've got to use Bash or that you've got to use Linux and install a new Windows subsystem for Linux. You don't have to know Node. You don't have to know any of this. You just need to install a few tools. So, I don't even want to explain what Bash is or what Windows subsystem for Linux is, right? What we're going to do is, start with knowing that you know what the command prompt is in Windows. You know that you can do CMD and open the command prompt, okay? And you could do a dir command in the command prompt and list the directory contents. So Windows 10 comes with PowerShell. So PowerShell is the scripting tool, that terminal tool that Windows developers use. So we're just going to stick with that. It's already installed in Windows. We can get to PowerShell from here. So it looks exactly like a DOS prompt, and I can still do a dir, but also I can do Unix commands, for me, old school, because I've learned Unix so long ago, but I could do an ls and find ls is just a Unix command for list, which is the same as dir, directory command in Windows. So it's got a few extra little things, but we're not going to delve into the details of why PowerShell is good, but you already got it on Windows 10, so we're going to utilize that for our command line stuff. Okay. So this is not about the Salesforce CLI. There is a great tool, great video about the CLI, video series from Salesforce Weekly that goes through the CLI. If you can do all this stuff from a command line. I just get really lost in the sea of text, and I don't want to touch the command line yet. There are a few times where I will do things via the command line, but this is the idea, is I want you to have the ability to do it via the command line if you're really comfortable with it, or do it via the IDE if you want to. So that's what we're going to try and do. Just another note about some of the tools is Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is a Git tool. Git is not GitHub. They're different. Git is a tool that is used on your PC or on your computer, and GitHub is a hosting site for Git files. So Git can be used locally, but you want to back it up. So you could put your Git files in your Dropbox and it'll be backed up, no problem. but we want to use a tool that can be then extended to use for all sorts of other tools like branching and merging and the pull requests and everything like that that Git is really good for. So I use Bitbucket. So Bitbucket's an Atlassian tool, and it is, the best thing about it is it's got free private repositories. So it is, so GitHub has $7 per month for US for private repositories, but Bitbucket allows free private repositories. So I can't even get to the main website. That's just, I'm logged in. Okay, so Bitbucket is one that you actually want to use, I think, because you don't want to have your company org or your client's orgs and even your developer org. You don't need to have that whole metadata on, or even some of the metadata on GitHub as a public thing that can be found. There is some sensitive stuff in your metadata as well as your data. So we just want to make sure that we've got the tools that's good. And so the other thing that Atlassian does is source tree. Yep, there's a lot of different tools out there you can do to give a visual UI to Git, but source tree is pretty cool, pretty easy to use. So we're going to use source tree. And then, of course, we're going to install VS Code, and we're going to install Git on Windows because Git is not installed on Windows at the moment. Okay. So when I installed all this, I had every single problem under the sun. Just had so many problems. You can probably see my tweets over the last month or so trying to get understanding how all this works. So we'll try getting it done first go. I just don't know how it's going to go. We'll just see. So the very first thing we're going to install is, I think, Git. Let's install Git first. Okay, so I don't know why, but can't go next without selecting the nano editor. Okay, so we want to use Git for the command line and also third-party software. Good, we're not doing Unix tools, that's fine. So we just want to use it from the command line. I'm not going to try and do SSL in this or any fancy security. But of course, SSL is good for HTTPS connections because we need a HTTPS connection to Bitbucket. So we're going to use OpenSSL to do that. Again, we're just trying to use the most basic settings. Now, I had a problem with the line endings. So I'm going to try it this time. Check out it as commit as is because I had a problem. It was making my line endings having issues. Again, not sure enough here to make any changes. Yep, not 100% sure enough, and I'm just going to install it. Okay, got to be brave. You don't have to know everything about everything you're doing before you install something. Even though this is my main production machine I use every single day. Okay, so that's now finished. I don't want to view the release notes and finish. So Git is done. So the next thing we're going to do is install VS Code. So Visual Studio Code, I've got a link here. And this is our VS Code. So we're going to download for Windows. And it's downloading. Okay, so we'll just go through the setup wizard. So add to path, that is good. We need that. So that's done, so we can launch Visual Studio Code. Okay, so this is good. This is our code. Let's close down all of this. Don't know what folder we're in. So in another folder. So what I'll just do is open another folder. So I did have some stuff open from my previous install. I had my files folders that I use. So I came up with that. So I've just opened the sample Dreamhouse app that I'd done with previously. So all that is a folder in the file system. Let's have a look at that. So just so you know, this is nothing unusual, nothing fancy. So I've just done everything as C code. I hate my documents folder name because I put my company name in it because I log into different people's orgs, and so it makes it a really bad name on the file name. So I just created C code, and I've got a few different ones here, and so I've got a sample Dreamhouse project, and that's got the Dreamhouse sample in from the SFDX trailheads, and that's all that is. So at this point in time, this bit here, all it is opening a file system. That's all it is. And it's got the couple of things you used last here. And you know what? This got me really annoyed, this welcome page. So I don't actually need this welcome page on startup anymore. Okay. So there's a couple of things with VS Code. Let's have a look. We've got the Git built-in integration. So we've got that set up now. So it already knows that we are on this master branch. We can have a look at my other steps as to how to do that on the wiki. And we've got the extensions. Now, this is the most amazing thing about VS Code is it's got all of these different extensions. So for me, the very first thing I wanted to do is make sure I've got a good Git extension, and there are heaps of them. The Git Lens is the one that everyone raves about, but for me, it was just far too involved by the looks of it, so I just don't want to be overwhelmed. So I just found Git extensions for VS Code. It's not I don't like doing third-party tools. It is a third party, but I'm just going to install that one. And as soon as you install an extension, you have to reload Visual Studio Code for it to then function. Okay, so the most important thing we want to now install is the Salesforce extensions. So Salesforce has made it nice and easy for us. If we just search for Salesforce, we can see it's made by Salesforce. Remember now, this is official. This is the official IDE for Salesforce, and it's an extension pack. So it includes all of these different extensions. So let's just install that. Now this is going to take a while. It will just sit here sitting on installing and installing all of the different extensions for a while. So we'll pause here. Okay, that took a really long time, and I didn't get to the point to show you the reload. We'd seen that before. I think it might have just got hung up because the CLI integration was just sitting there for, you'd see how long it took from the time code. So I hit reload on, and it seems to be installed, but I don't know if we're going to have problems because this is where I got a real major problems previously, where the CLI integration seemed to have gotten corrupted. Luckily, there is some troubleshooting, as I've linked to in my wiki, to fix that issue. So we can see here, these are now the enabled extensions. You can go crazy and add all sorts of different extensions and things, but I would suggest just don't go overboard, because too many extensions means issues. So one of the things that I don't like is that the XML files, like majority of the files in the metadata of Salesforce XML is XML, and it looks like a backward RSS icon. And I don't like that as the icon, but you can actually, this is one of the great things about the VS Code, you can change all of that. So, so you can go to edit, file, preferences, settings, and then you can, go through and get all of these different settings. So the settings for preferences, file icon theme or color theme. So file icon theme, you can just say, no, going to disable them. So there is no file icons. I don't know, I like the file icons, so I'm just going to live with them for right now. And I might go to there's the minimal one. So might go and download another one later. So that's the setting file icons. And there's also all these settings. So there is a link to a great website as to things you can do with Visual Studio Code that you may not know about. Okay, so one of the other great things about Visual Studio Code is that it's got the Integrator Terminal. So you're going to start to learn to use your keyboard shortcuts here, Control backtick. No, that doesn't bring up a terminal. It's Control Shift backtick. If you go here, Control Shift backtick. I don't know why that one is wrong there. Control Shift backtick that gives up the terminal. Don't know why all these icons, these pop-ups keep coming up. I hate them. Maybe someone can tell me. So here's our terminal. You saw when we opened up the PowerShell before. It's basically exactly the same. So it's just here in the screen. So what we need to now check is, after installing that, is SFDX working? So what we're going to do here is just type SFDX H. And it's saying SFDX is not the recognized name of a commandlet, function, script file, etc. So that's what I thought, because I haven't actually installed the CLI, because here we're working in a terminal. It's like a separate program than VS Code itself. But we're using it with inside VS Code. So I haven't actually installed a Salesforce DX to work from the command line yet, which is the Salesforce CLI tool. But where else? The other place that you can go is to command palette, and see here we've got SFDX commands working here. So I can use the SFDX commands inside of Visual Studio. So if I do list all alias, I'll say, right, no, it can't, because it hasn't got the SFDX force. It hasn't got the underlying code. Okay, backtrack. So what we've got to do, or should have probably done before we installed VS Code, is install the Salesforce CLI. So let's have a look at the Salesforce CLI. So this is just again Google Salesforce CLI and you'll get to it, and we'll download and install it for Windows 64. Now, while you're doing that, just remember to come up into the screens for each extension and have a look at the prerequisites. So it's saying, before you use Salesforce extensions for VS Code, set up the Salesforce CLI. Now, there's been so many changes in the way Salesforce CLI works during its beta phase and everything like that. I thought I could get away without it. Obviously not. So, because if you go to set up the Salesforce CLI screen, it doesn't actually say install Salesforce CLI. But I think that's where we are needed at the moment. And so here's our SFDX thing that we need to install. So we'll just get rid of those. So we're installing the Salesforce CLI and setting a path. Now, actually, that might be another reason, because I haven't restarted and the path would set on restart. But I think it's a good idea to have the Salesforce CLI also. So all of the stuff you can see in that Salesforce weekly video, that is done via the Salesforce CLI, which is just doing the commands via the terminal only. And in the terminal they use in Mac on that videos is Bash. So that's using a Bash terminal. We are using the PowerShell, and there is some commands that you may not be able to do exactly the same as if you're looking at videos of people doing things in Bash. But we are, again, we're just going to try and keep it simple here. So I'll pause while that installs. Okay, that took forever. And see here. Oh, didn't realize it's going to take this long. Okay, so that is now finished. Now, what's the bet it doesn't work? So let's come back to our, close down that one. We'll come back to our terminal. And now, just so you know, if you want to run the last command that you ever ran, you can just do up arrow. Oh, looks like something is doing something. Okay, so we've got, it's recognized, it hasn't said anything else. So, but it's told us I did H, minus H for help. But we just got to do SFDX, FDX help. Okay, no, FS, well, let's just do SFDX force org list. This is the most basicest command that you want to learn so that you can just see what your orgs are that you've got connected at the moment. Oh, no orgs found. That's because this is a brand new install, of course. I did have some orgs connected before. Okay, so we at least know our SFDX commands work. Now, if we go to our command palette, now you're going to remember Control-Shift-P because that's going to get us up there all the time. So we're going to just do SFDX list all. Let's just do list all aliases and see what it comes back with. So it's not working from there yet. Okay, so we do have a problem. Okay, so this is sort of similar to where I was yesterday, and I think we'll have to go through the troubleshooting document. So I think then install CLI first, then install VS Code, then install the extensions. Hopefully that will get us where we are. So just so we can see, we're going to do PowerShell, and we're just going to do, no, wrong, we don't want Edge, PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. And we are going to do SF in there and just make sure it comes up with that. So you can see there that DX can run outside of VS Code. It can run on the command line directly. We can do everything we want to do from the command line, but we don't want to play with the command line. Okay, let's continue with our installations. So back on the help documents here. So we go to the Salesforce extension pack documents, and there is one extra thing that it requires. So and I'll just bring this down here. And prerequisites. Set up the Salesforce CLI, create DX project. We need a Java SE development kit 8 downloads. Okay, boring, but we have got to get through this bit for everything to work. Now, are you like me, whenever you come to this page, you think, what am I meant to have? What? I don't know. So I just expect that the very first thing is the right thing, and I just try that. Okay, so it's JDK Windows x64. So here is the JDK. Again, I am just going to do everything stock standard, just not going to change anything. So I'll just pause there. So that's gone through the installation, but just I think I may have done something wrong when I set it up. And you know how Java installs all sorts of other things that you don't want. I may have actually installed other things I don't want. So just check before you install Java that it's not installing 10,000 other things that you don't want. Okay, so where are we at now? We've got our terminal working. We've got our file open. We've got our SFDX commands in the command palette. And we have Git installed, and we've got the Visual Studio Code installed. Now, the very next thing we want to install, now this is optional, but this is how I work, so I want to show you everything how I work, is source tree. So let's just bring down source tree. So this is source tree, again by Atlassian, and it's a Git client for Windows. So all it does is make Git look a little fancier and a little nicer to use, and it is it's just a quite a nice little app. You can do all of Git from the command line. There is a Git GUI installed with Git for Windows, but I just really like this. And it integrates with Bitbucket really nicely. While we're doing that, see how the terminal's got all this other stuff in here. Another command you can use is CLS, clear screen, which just clears your terminal out to use again. Now, I'm working on a pretty small screen here for this video, and I keep moving this divider up and down, and so this is where your files are open here. There's the component, but once you're on a bigger screen, it's a lot nicer to use. Okay, so here's our source tree. We're using Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is the cloud version, not the server version. We don't have access to our server version. And it's doing an OAuth authorization over here. So let me just bring that down. So OAuth, we're going to grant access. So I'd already logged into Bitbucket and created a Bitbucket repository account, Bitbucket account. So that's all we need to do there. And it says registration's complete. So this is my Bitbucket account. So we're not installing, oh, actually, look, you can install Git at the same time. All right, that's cool. Excellent. So maybe we should install source tree first. We don't need anything different. Yes, we want to set the global author details. Up to you whether you want to choose that. Now, I do SSH for my regular Bitbucket, but in this case, I'm not doing it because I'm just using HTTPS login. So I'm just saying no on this one, but I'll need to set that up later. So here's source tree. Now we can just open that Dreamhouse folder. This is a Git enabled folder. And here is this is the one, part of the Trailhead project is to clone a repo from GitHub. And you can see I've done a few changes and I've got some uncommitted changes. When you clone a repo, you get all of their history. You can see all of the Salesforce staff that have contributed to this history of this Dreamhouse project over its period of time. Now, we can't get rid of that. We can just ignore that. And this is from where we downloaded it and started it ourselves into this test Dreamhouse commit. So that's all we'll look at source tree at the moment. We can just see that we've got it up and running. It's there. It's got all the Git stuff in there. And now we don't have a remote set up yet, but we're going to do that in the next video. So that's why that error message is coming up there. So I'm just going to pause and I'm going to try and find out what is going on with this. Why my view command palette, Control-Shift-P, remember that because it's easier than go through all the menus. So why my SFDX does not want to function. Command authorize web login not found. That's the very first command you want to use. And it's not working. So I'm just going to pause and I'm going to go through the troubleshooting to work out what's going on. Okay, I have gone through this troubleshooting step and extension malfunctions after update is what I thought would. Uninstalled, reinstalled the Salesforce Cli, and it's still not working. That's the very first command we need. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because that's long enough. It's taken far too long to get this part. Hopefully if you get through this, you'll do it in the right order and get things installed correctly so that you can run that very first command, which is authorize an org, which is what we're going to do because we're not doing scratch orgs, we're just going to play with existing orgs. So, but remember, we could do it in our terminal and do force org. Now I can't remember, so we do H force org login. No. Force org open. No, because we have to have one. Force org create. No. Did I? But at least we've got the problem is, the thing is, well, we've got the SFDX commands there. So we're going to deal with that in the next video as to how to start with this process of creating logging into an org via a DX, downloading some metadata and putting it into Bitbucket. That's the next video. But for now, we've got our development environment sort of set up. I'm a bit annoyed that it didn't quite go to plan, but that's the way these things work. Okay, thank you, and hopefully you'll come back to the next video where we're going through all this in more detail.